Andiepants here from Swirly Doos to talk to you today about the different types of ink that are on the market and the different purposes for those inks. When we're through today, head over to the Swirly Doos website and there's a printout on the forums under the mixed media tutorials. Print out on your computer and you can have to reference whenever you're looking for the right ink for the project that you're doing at that time. All these different inks have different properties that make them perfect depending on which project that you're doing. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about a few of these. All of the inks that I've chosen today are in black. The first one that we're going to talk about is dye-based ink. I have chosen Memento. Other dye-based inks include Close to My Heart. Other dye-based inks include Stampin' Up. A dye-based ink is fantastic for when you're wanting to color with alcohol markers such as Copics or Spectrum Noir, because the alcohol inks will not make the dye-based ink run. When working with materials, remember that like dissolves like. This is what I get for being married to a chemist. If you remember that one basic principle, then it'll be easy to remember that alcohol inks dissolve alcohol ink. So for a water-based ink or dye ink such as Memento, it's safe to go ahead and use those alcohol markers. Memento dries fast. Other dye-based inks, they all dry fast, so you don't have to wait for that very long for them to dry. However, because they are water-based, they are not going to hold up well against water-based mediums, such as gel medium, matte medium, Mod Podge, glossy accents. When using products like this with a dye-based ink, these products will make your dye-based inks run. This is why you frequently do not see me using dye-based ink on my projects. But if you're someone who is into a lot of stamping and coloring with markers, then this is going to be the ink for you. The nice part about Memento is that it is fade resistant. I have had some Stampin' Up ink and some Close to My Heart ink, and they both fade. Memento does not fade. Very nice dye-based ink. The next one that we're going to talk about is StazOn. StazOn is something that you will see me use frequently in my mixed media projects because it is not a water-based ink. It is an alcohol ink, and it won't run when using gel medium, matte medium, glossy accents, Mod Podge, etc. The list goes on. StazOn ink is also wonderful for stamping on non-porous surfaces. What do I mean by non-porous surfaces? Acetate, vellum, acetate meaning transparencies, vellum. You can stamp on your photos with StazOn ink, or metal. You can actually color metal and stamp metal with StazOn. It's been my experience with the StazOn ink that when I color my metal with StazOn, although it gives it a really nice color, the StazOn does tend to be sticky. So you would want to make sure that you seal that with Krylon. However, when I've stamped onto metal foil tape and such, the StazOn tends to dry. It does take a little while to dry, but it will still dry. You can also use StazOn ink for embossing, but I have much better ink luck with the pigment inks when embossing versus the StazOn. So, StazOn, good for when you're using mixed media and water-based products, so it doesn't run with the water-based products, and good for stamping on non-porous surfaces. The next classification of ink that we're going to talk about is pigment ink. Personally, I did not get a good image with Brilliance. I didn't buy a re-inker because I did not like my Brilliance. Perhaps it was the actual ink pad itself. I do prefer to use the Archival. So I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the Archival. Archival ink is a pigment-based ink, so it does stay wet longer. This is good for things like embossing. This will run when using alcohol-based markers such as Copics and Spectrum Noir. So make sure, again, that if you're using alcohol-based markers, that you're using a dye-based ink. Do not use Archival. Archival ink is also good for stamping on photos, but it does take a long time to dry when stamping on vellum and such. This one is fantastic for embossing because this one does stay nice and juicy and wet for so long. One thing that you can do with pigment-based inks like this is you can combine them with the distressed inks, which are a dye-based ink. Ray has a tutorial on the Swirly Doo site regarding distress ink. But one thing that you can do is that you can color your background with the distress ink, stamp with the archival ink, and then once it's dry, spritz your water to activate the distress ink. You'll get that activation with the water, but the archival ink will not run, bleed, or dry. I think the older archival ink used to react with the distress ink, but they've changed the formula so it doesn't anymore. So those are the different types of ink that we have to use in scrapbooking and stamping today. Make sure you go over to the Swirly Doos forum to get that handy little printout so that you know what type of ink to use for your next product. And thanks for watching.